Hello and welcome. You're listening to the Reds Report, Barnsley's longest running podcast for the past 10 years. Well, if you're a Barnsley FC fan, life is never boring. Last week, Wednesday, head coach Darryl Clark was sacked and Conor Horahan was put in charge until the end of the season. For many, many weeks, fans have been wanting to hear from the club, the board, the owners, the chairman, and today Rob Staten was granted an interview with Neerav, and that's what our programme will centre about. To give us some balance, first of all, special guest this evening, he's not a guest no more, he's one of the lads really. It's Adam Oxley from BBC Radio Sheffield Football Haven. Good evening, Adam.
Evening, Carlo. Thanks for inviting me back.
That's all right. And also, of course, we have Steve. Steve, how are you this fine evening?
Well, I was going to listen to Football 11, but Sloppy's here, isn't he? What's he doing? Get on radio, man. What's up with you?
And with us, of course, is Ian. Ian, you're right, mate?
I'm very well.
Very good. Well, let's start then. I thought, right, when I came home from work, I'll listen to the interview and I'll make some points. And I thought it'll be a bit before there's anything interesting. But then within the first 50 seconds, this is what Neerav said. After the summer transfer window, we felt our squad is top 3 or top 4 in this league. It might be on basis of, not spending a lot of money or anything. But let's start with you, Ian. Top 3, top 4. Is that realistic?
No, it's quite laughable, actually. So when you look at the league table, it's a better squad than Wrexham's, Bolton's, Stockport's, for instance. I would say not. They've not resolved the goalkeeping situation. Defence, I know we've had a few injuries, but there's still question marks over a number of those defenders. Pines is one of them, possibly O'Keefe. The midfield hasn't worked. I know he's saying on paper, but you look at the strikers, you could argue that Waters, Humphreys, Cosgrove, none of them 3 have particularly worked. So I don't know where he's basing that on. I'm sorry, but I know it's his opinion, but I think it's wrong, if I'm honest.
Steve, he went on to say next, when we give the manager a strong squad, we expect a certain level of performance. My question to you is, who decides how strong the squad is? Because on paper, they might look good, but if they struggle every Saturday and Tuesday night, you've not got a strong squad, have you?
Like you say, on paper, if you were looking at it in August, September last year, you'd perhaps looked at it and said, yeah, we could, maybe make playoffs with players that we had. You'd still got that core midfield with Phillips and Connell. And you thought, if they're firing on all cylinders, MDG were getting better. Roberts had come back. We got the chance of Horahan playing more than 25 minutes, which obviously that was about it. In a way, I see what he's saying. I mean, let's first of all, I haven't listened to interview. I've seen a few comments. I listened to you guys while I was sat in green room with my cocktail and my fluffer. So that were all right. But you look at how the season's progressed and you just think, who's let who down? Is it the players that's let the manager down? We know it's the board that's let the manager down, definitely. But you look at us now and coming up to middle of March, manager's gone, who we thought might do a decent job, started off all right, but never got any support. Team's gone downhill, board's gone downhill. Some of them players should hang their heads in shame because they're an absolute disgrace. How they can call themselves professionals, I have no idea. So on what you've said, he said in his opening statement, my opening statement would be, sorry, mate, it's about time you went with manager.
Adam, you, as part of the BBC, was you were given the opportunity, obviously, to do this interview. Looking back, because through Praise or Grumble, through Football Heaven, you speak to a lot of Barnsley fans, and there's been some, can I just say, after he was sacked, some fantastic, really, not. You have people that immediately slay the ball, but some people with some real feelings and real valid points. came to the fore. Looking back at this interview, do you think it will have appeased any of the fans? Is this the interview or is this the answers Barnsley wanted? Or does it maybe feel that the levels of expectation of the board and the fans, and there's maybe a bigger gulf than we thought?
First of all, I'm glad somebody from the hierarchy has spoken and has done an interview and has given and has answered whatever questions that we've thrown at them, and Rob did an excellent job, as he always does with interviews like this afternoon. So I would implore anyone to listen to it and make their own judgments on things. I don't think the answers given will have greatly changed anyone's opinion. I think clearly that it reaffirmed how much data is involved and how much they look at that, and how much, when they're making statements along the lines of top 3, top 4 squad, it will be looking at history and where players have played before and where they've been in the division and everything else. I think a little bit like Steve said, clearly people at the moment have got a lot of anger and frustration at where things are and where they're heading and everything else. But maybe if you did look at it from a different perspective, or you looked at that just on paper and not with your eyes and all that kind of stuff, maybe you could paint a slightly different picture with some of it. I just, when I heard that initial comment around top 3, top 4, it just didn't really chime with anything that we've talked about on the show this season, that I've talked about on these podcasts, that we've seen within the stadium. I just see at least 5, 6, 7 or 8 other clubs in the division that appear to have either thrown more money at it or have slightly better squads this year. That Barnsley haven't been able to replace the players that have gone. Yeah, obviously Neerav today is talking about, look, money has been reinvested, and it might not have been reinvested in transfer fees, but it's been reinvested in wages. So I don't know. I think I've already had like 2 flicks through of the interview and made a few notes, and there are, and I'm sure we'll go on to some of the other points, Carlo. But I'm still kind of struggling with the reality as opposed to where the club is saying it wants to get to and how it's going to get there, and that putting it as the Championship is where ultimately it wants to be, and saying that Barnes, I think one of his quotes late in the interview was, Barnsley's still one of the top sides in the division. I just kind of feel like when you're using language like that compared to what we see with our eyes and how this season's gone, and the fact that he's trying to manage people's expectations in the summer on a variety of reasons, then I suspect there will still be quite a bit of frustration out there at the situation now and where the club might be heading.
Maybe he just didn't say which division. Maybe he didn't mean first division. Maybe he meant something else, like Northern Counties or something like County Senior, something like
that. Another bombshell that he dropped was Max Watters has got the strongest XG in League One. Now, I am wondering if that was before he came to Barnsley. No denying that he has scored goals, but if you're talking about strongest or the highest rated XG, Ian, he doesn't come to mind. If you ask Barnsley, who do you think will start today or tomorrow? Likely Humphreys and Keeler Dunn. Keeler Dunn is getting goals, and he mentioned in the interview probably the most amount of goals, not including penalties.
Yeah,
we're not talking about DKD because that's worked, hasn't it? That was somebody who was identified, took a bit over the line, but it's worked. He made our team a better team. You could say he maybe replaced the goals that Devante Cole scored, for instance. Max Watters is only really involved if there's injury in the front line. First of all, how do you feel about the statement? And second, when you look at the lineup, what the head coach chooses before every match, and Max Watters is not in there, that tells his own story, doesn't it?
It does. I think Humphreys plays better with Keeler Dunn. They seem to have a better partnership of all the strikers. There was a piece in the Cron today that I'd read about quite a lot of the issues through the season, and one of them is that we've had some gilt-edged, and it's not just Watters this, but we've had a lot of gilt-edged chances in games and we've missed them. But Watters is one of those that will miss chances. So again, the XG business, like Adam said, you can say one thing on paper, but the evidence over the last 8 months is contrary to what Neerav is saying. And he wouldn't be on the team sheet for me, Watters, as much as he tries hard enough. He's been here long enough now. And I know he's had periods of injury, but he's been here long enough now that we'd know whether we had a top striker with us. And I don't see it with Watters at all, unfortunately. And I think when they talk about Championship and where they want to be in squad, but the evidence is the opposite. Well, if they wanted that and were serious about that, then surely you'd have moved heaven and earth to keep McAtee. But he goes to your rivals. There's a classic example. McAtee and DKD would have been one hell of a partnership this season, and would have probably pushed you towards the Championship and resolve this issue with the goalkeeping situation. So what he says one thing, and the evidence, and that's where fans just call him out. And because if you're talking about that, I think McAtee would have stayed. He'd have stayed in the area. He seemed to be happy, but no, we'll let him go to a rival.
Steve, I don't know if you've seen this statement, and I don't want to put you he was willing to £100 charity bet that 5 players or so from this squad will play in the Championship in the next 3 to 4 seasons. So excluding Gauci, who plays for Aston Villa, and well, he might be playing Champions League, we never know, but we're going to exclude him because he's not our player. Can you name me 5 players you think might play in the Championship in the next 3 to 4 years?
Is that Championship in this country or Championship in Lithuania or somewhere like that?
That's the EFL. That's EFL.
And that was 5 of the starting 10 outfield players.
Sorry. Yeah, correct. Yeah.
5. DKD possibly. Dejivny possibly. Gent, if he's given the right coaching, possibly. I'm struggling now. I can't think.
Surely Adam Phillips, Steve.
You do it every time, don't you? You get that big stick, that big pointy stick. I get enough stick off Twitter. We aren't getting it off you. Yeah, a couple of seasons ago, maybe I would have said Adam Phillips. But Adam Phillips has turned into another Herbie Kane. He's a Mardy sod. He don't want to play. He wants to play when he wants to play. But the thing is with Phillips, he's now not the only one. There's 3 or 4 players on that field that are just not performing at all. But to pick 5 players that have a potential of playing in Championship, I can't think of 5. By the way.
It was Championship or higher.
Or higher?
Yeah.
Or higher? Really?
Championship or higher.
The man's deluded, isn't he? Let's be honest. Can you? Well, go on then. Can you think of 5 players other than DKD, Dejivny, possibly Gent?
I would. The only one I would have said was
the only one I had was DKD. The only one that I thought, because he is very regularly performing. Gent is very hard to form an opinion on because he's not really.
He never gets to play. He'd rather play somebody that's right-footed at left back than play him.
I like him with Carlo, but he's not in the starting 10, is he? He's not a regular, so that takes him out of the equation.
I was flabbergasted by that statement. And of all the notes I made, I did that one in bold because I just thought, because if you had 5 players that could play in the Championship, we wouldn't be 10th in the league and struggling to get results at home over the past 2 seasons. When Connell, when Phillips have all been part of that squad for the past. So I don't know where he gets that from. So is he then saying they're not giving their all for Barnsley? Because if you had half...
No, they're not. They're not giving their all, are they? Let's be honest. But the other thing as well, which I will touch on when you're on about Watters, and you can bring Humphreys in on this, or even Cosgrove in on this, half at time, they're not getting any service from midfield. Yeah, it's Watters we slag off. Yeah, it's Humphreys we slag off. They're lazy. They don't do this. They don't do that. DKD wouldn't have scored half at goals he scored if he hadn't actually dropped back to pick the ball up to then go forward.
Yeah.
Phillips can't play a ball forward. Connell can't play a ball forward. Naquali hardly ever picks him, but last 2 or 3 games he's played has not played a ball forward. It's sideways, it's backwards, it's O'Keefe so he can run down tunnel like Forrest Gump. Or, do you know what I mean? We are not creating chances for our forwards, which, when we had Woodrow and Morris, is exactly the same thing. It makes them look shit. But it does, you know.
No, you're right. You're right. I laugh, but you're right.
another interesting point, Adam, and another, I thought, really good question from Rob was about the manager situation at Stendhal. We've not really had anybody. And then he said, we want fast attacking football. And 5 managers have been sacked because of, they don't seem to get what they want. My issue then is that not because you haven't recruited the players that would fit that style of football? Because if there's one thing we're lacking to me, you talked about McAteen, one thing we're lacking to me is pace. There is nobody that's got blistering pace to take somebody on and have a run. So if they want fast attacking football, shouldn't they recruit it according to that model and then say to the head coach, this is what we want, these players we've got, because now they're saying, can you make us a full English breakfast? And they're buying 2 packets of rice. It's complete mismatch, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd certainly look at, you go look at the kind of coach recruitment and the player recruitment and going along those lines, because at times over the last couple of seasons we've seen some games where it's been like that. But since you looked at Valerian's side and that was a little bit more kind of rock and roll football in a way. It was back to front with a high press and all that. We've just not really seen that from the team. So if that's what the board wants, and that's again what they've re-emphasized today, and that's what they've wanted all the way through the last 2 years, then did they appoint the wrong head coaches with both of them? And looking at that, has some of the recruitment not provided that? Because I look at some of the players in the squad and they sit more around being a bit more technical and maybe building a little bit more and playing out and playing wide and everything else, as opposed to kind of that all-out attack element to it. So that's great if that's what you want, and I appreciate that. You might not have a Valerian Ismail available, or you might not be able to get exactly the some of the players that you want. But when they talk about in terms of the recruitment and looking at the data, then looking at the video and looking at everything else, if there's a specific type of player and coach that they clearly want at the club, and that's what they're saying, then I'd have expected maybe different head coaches or different players to have been at the club, because for the last 2 years, it's not what we've seen on the pitch isn't the same as what we'd seen before under certainly Ismail, but Duff as well to an extent. But these are kind of, the last 2 years have been like Duff light in a way. It's been a kind of similar approach, but just not with any kind of same emphasis or even energy to it. So, yeah, again, it's one of those actions and words marrying up with each other, isn't it?
Yeah. Ian, he was asked about player sales and the revenue that brings, and his when talking about that, he said we have reinvested, maybe not in transfers but in wages. Now, because I'm Dutch, we don't have to do maths GCSEs, but just stick with me because I'm not sure if I got this right. If you have a player who earns, let's say, 10 grand a week, and after a while, you sell that player, let's say, for $500,000, right? You get that $500,000, and you pay that out in wages over 3 years, let's say, for the player that you bring in. You've replaced, you've not reinvested, have you? Because reinvested would be a new amount of money or a bigger amount of money to bring somebody to the club. When you bring somebody in from the French second division or the division in Ireland, you're not going to pay him as much as a player that's gone to a championship. So is it me looking at that simplistic? Because I just felt that was a bit of a Harry Potter answer, like, oh, no, we are. But no, players that left were paid every week. Players that come in were paid. But besides DKD, I can't remember, and Adam might know better, I can't remember us paying any transfer fees for any of the players in the summer at all.
No, I agree. I think, and I'm not aware of any of the current squad that have renewed the contracts recently, so that they would have then maybe got an improved contract, which you might think, they've suddenly gone from $8,000 a week to $10,000 a week or whatever. So I can't see where that money, apart from DKD, that he may have been put on a good contract. But apparently Benson's the highest paid at the club, allegedly. So DKD's not come in and smashed that. So yeah, it doesn't. Again, it's another quote that doesn't quite sit right with the fan base. As much as, yes, we don't know pounds and pence, but it's easy to put a throwaway comment and say we've reinvested, but like with loan deals, we've got loan players in, but don't like the parent club pay some, and I wouldn't have thought we've probably spent a lot wages in there. Maybe that might be the only thing.
Depends on each deal with a loan. Sometimes the parent club can pay more. Sometimes the other club can pay more. It just depends.
Yeah. So again, I'm struggling really to say, oh yeah, I can see what he means. Player A, player B, player C have come in, and we've suddenly brought 3 or 4 better quality players in that you can say, yeah, they're probably like close to top earners, because like you say, we're bringing players in from leagues like Ireland and America and French second division or whatever. They're not going to be on good money. So yeah, it's another answer that we're scratching our head to actually prove, to say, actually, is he talking nonsense again, or can't evidence it, can he?
No. Well, on that note, for you, Steve, he was asked how he felt the director of football was doing. And he says he's done a great job under the constraints he has to work under, the constraints being the wage structure that's in place. And he mentioned, for example, DKD. Absolutely right. But you can't mention one player when you've bought 7 in the tenure that you've been with us. Because then you would say 1 out of 7. Is that a great job? Somebody who's playing regular. Because some of the ones that have been brought in before his time, not playing regular, but the players he's brought in, for as far as I know, and again, I don't think any of the guys that he was part of are playing regular at the moment. So is he doing a great job, Steve?
He's probably doing a great job for somebody who knows fuck all about football, to be quite honest. But, first and foremost, whether it's Bin Laden or whoever you bring in as a director of football, you would like to think, if you are trying to improve your squad and you're trying to improve your players and you're trying to improve your team and you're trying to get into that championship and upper echelons of football, you bring somebody in that has got some idea about English football, not somebody who doesn't. Perhaps I'm being too, perhaps this is a bit too much common sense. I don't understand it. He's brought DKD. No, I'm sure he's not brought DKD. Maybe we're sat at edit table checking checkbook about and trying to sort out how much you were paying. But they keep banging on about these spreadsheets and stuff. So I'm sure he's not picked, let's sign DKD because I've seen him play for Mansfield and I know he's got a lovely right foot and he can finish. No, not a clue. They'll still being sat at home drinking his hot chocolate, watching something else, I would have thought, while actual people are getting the players together. If he'd done a good job, he wouldn't be signing a striker we've never heard on from France. Striker in inverted brackets, obviously. And we wouldn't have been signing a bloody left winger from America if he'd known anything about football. So where you get he's done a good job, Where, please? Perhaps it's something I'm missing. Perhaps I'm missing something. Perhaps I don't know what I'm talking about.
I appreciate the fact that they came out. It's my worry is always when that interview raises more questions and it gives you answers. Adam, he mentioned, Rob asked, will the sacking of 2 head coaches within a year have an impact on the budget for next year? And he says it will do. And as it stands, a projected loss of £750,000 per month, roughly. And off by heart, because it's the state of football at the moment, isn't it? Because it's all over. How does that compare with other sort of clubs in our? And listen, I know we can't go up against like the Sheffield United, but how does that compare with like a Rotherham, for instance? Because I know they're talking about how much we're losing, but then in the back of my head is still that recruitment question of we did get money for players at some point. Where is all that gone then? So how does our projected compare to some of the other clubs around us, comparable clubs?
Well, there's lots of different facets about this, and the fact that Neerav did kind of talk about wider football being a mess, that essentially there's clubs at the minute that have got pretty much open checkbooks that are fighting their way out of the division, and there's 2 or 3 this year that have spent big money on that. Barnsley are losing a fair chunk of money every month. A lot of other clubs are losing a fair chunk of money every month. There's a lot of parallels with Barnsley and Rotherham right now in terms of how the fan bases are feeling and the seasons that they've had and everything else. And it is getting increasingly difficult to compete, really, isn't it? In terms of the money. But again, without major changes at the top of the game, without a regulator coming in, without a fairer flow of the money coming down, I don't see how that's going to change. And at the minute, there seems to be an inordinate amount of American investment groups that are coming in and looking at various clubs. Sheffield United have just been taken over by Americans. There's talk of Wednesday being looked at by Americans and whatever else. So it is difficult for Barnsley, but this is where I come back to that expectation management element to it. And within the same answers today, he talked about still, like I said, still being one of the biggest clubs in the division, still wanting to get back to the Championship in terms of the impacts on the budget in the summer, not spending crazy amounts, not being Championship or bust next season, but still wanting to make a push for promotion. And I just kind of look at it and think, without extra investment in there, and clearly football clubs do cost a lot and cost a lot up across the world. I get all that, but it's just a case of how realistic is making a push going to be next year, if within the same interview he's talking about potentially going back to being a selling club again. And one of the things that Neerav did talk about within his interview a couple of times was the fact that over a couple of windows over the last couple of years, last season and this season, they've had offers for players and decided to keep them at the club. He said that they'd had offers for every single one of those free agents that left last summer, Kane, Cole, Cadden, Williams, etc., last January, but then decided to keep them. And obviously wanted to show that was the club, trying to keep the players to go for a promotion push and doing the same this year. So I think we can expect that there would be players leaving in the summer, that the club aren't going to flash a load of cash and do X, Y, and Z. But I would then just look at it and think, how realistic is the aim of trying to push for promotion again next season, if that is the case? So there's lots to unpick, and football and finances at the minute is well, it's been mad for years, hasn't it? And I do have sympathy with them that football isn't fair. Finances aren't fair. It's not a fair playing field, and everyone's got a lot of expectations, but that's the nature of the business, unfortunately. And people are always going to have expectations.
And I suppose, ticket sales are a revenue, sponsorship are a revenue. If only we had like some big marketing executive on the board to try and bring more money into the club, how good would that be? The only thing that I can think of is, when you look at the Callum Simpson fight that's planned, How much money can I, are they looking now? The council owns it. Is the council looking at bringing more, events? Listen, is what it is. Right. So the last bit of the interview concentrated very much about the search for a new head coach. So Ian, the question was asked, is Conor Hourihane a candidate? And I said, his name is in the hat. But then he also spoke about the fact that I think they've spoken to two people. One is still being paid by his club until the summer, and the other one, a highly rated coach, doesn't really know what's happening until the summer. That's a bit. I just felt a bit for Conor Hourihane because it's very early in your coaching days to become a caretaker manager. I questioned why Conor and not Stead or Devaney. I don't know, because he was. I know he's no player no more, but the other ones have probably coached for longer and everything else. Well, names we don't know, but what type of head coach do we need? And we've said this for the last few seasons. And what do you think will be the barriers for not appointing that person?
Well, I think we said throughout the season, if it went pear-shaped with Clark, we always said Hourihane would step up, wouldn't he? It would be obvious, and that's played out. My fear is that I think Clark was the fourth choice, I think, because they wanted Thal Hammer, didn't they, and was going to give him a contract, and then they realised he couldn't get a work permit. And there was rumours of Stendhal coming back and Duff coming back until Huddersfield coming for him. So Clark was probably fourth choice. When I hear manager getting paid till the summer, I thought Ian Evatt, but then Ian Evatt doesn't have that style of play. He likes to build from the back, and I just don't think somebody like Evatt, as much as I know he's clashed with the Barnsley fan base and stuff, I just don't think he'd want to come here. And he just knows he's going to have a pittance. He's not going to have the money that he had at Bolton, and he's going to, he's not going to want to come. And I just wonder who's going to want to come. And my fear is they end up going abroad for somebody that, like they've done before with Shop and Asbaghi and people like that that's failed, or we end up with the cheap option and Conor gets it next season. So I really don't know what's going to happen. I still think it's a critical appointment this at the minute. I really feel like they've got to get this right. When you say who do they want, I just don't know, because some managers we've had have done, like we mentioned, Ismail, come out of absolutely nowhere and did really well. So you think of somebody proven. There was talk of the guy who used to be the Wales manager, but has he done club football? And
Rob Page,
yeah. I have sympathy with the board in trying to find the right man, but I don't have much trust in them finding the right man. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting how it plays out. What they have got by getting rid of Clark now and basically saying Conor just kind of keep us ticking over for the next 9 or 10 games is they've bought themselves time to properly look right across the board and interview, and they've got time on their hands to get somebody in early that has a full pre-season, and that's what you need. So they've bought themselves time, but whether they'll get the right man, who the right man is, I just don't know, because I don't know who'd want the job, really.
I agree with what you say. I don't have sympathy because I feel the board they are the cause of their own problem by not recruiting to what they want from a head coach.
The classic, Carlo, is they were praising Clark last season, saying this man has got numerous promotions. He knows how to get out into League One. He knows how to get promotions. He knows the divisions. And then they kick him down the road less than 10 months later. But he was supposed to be like, this is why we gave him the job, because of his CV. Well, why not give him plenty of transfer windows then, rather than two? Well, let's face it, January is a nightmare transfer window. They've given him one proper transfer window and kicked him down the road, yet they were lauding him as, this is why we've given him. Well, you either stick with somebody, because the next man who comes in, they will not turn around and say he's got a 3-year plan, he's going to have 5 or 6 transfer windows, bear with us. They're not going to do that, because whoever it is has got to work miracles. If they're not in, because you look at Collins and you look at Clark, if you're not in the hunt for the playoffs, serious hunt for the playoffs by March, you're out. They'll kick you out like they did with Collins and like they've done with Clark. So whoever comes in has got to work miracles straight away.
Yeah. I mean, Collins was before the last game of the season, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And Steve, we have asked before on the club, don't we, about who recruits. Well, we have an answer for you, Steve. Are you ready? Are you set down, mate? So this is how it works. The head coach mentions a position that needs to be recruited for. They then look through data, and a top 3, top 5 is selected, and then it's video analysis. Then, if and when needed, but I thought it was really fake, he mentioned old type scouts going out, but I don't think they do that no more. So it's very much data-driven and video analysis, and then it's given to the director of football to see who is viable, as in, are they under contract, release fee, wages, everything else. I get the data thing, right? I get it. My issue is, you might be able to see what a player can do on the pitch, but do they fit into the system? Are they a character that you can rely on? Is that person being able to get on with other people in the squad? Blah, 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 blah. So that is the recruitment team. So the recruitment team, in essence, are not the footballing people that, you know, maybe we wish they were. The video analysts and data engineers, whatever you want to call them, data experts. I bet you're happy with that, Steve, aren't you? Basically, spreadsheets and YouTube.
I can remember when I can't remember what club it was, but they sent a video and said that they were George Weah's brother. Now, we can all remember who George Weah were. He was a great footballer. What a player he was. But do you remember that bloke who said, I'm George Weah's brother, or I'm his cousin, or something like that? And it nearly got set on by a top football club. And we're roughly going down saying, well, yeah, we've stopped with scouts. I don't think they bother with scouts anymore, which is a great shame. But I think that's all the way through football. You'd like to think that the spreadsheet does pick up. It's got to pick up some diamonds somewhere, even in rough.
Somewhere, don't you? Yeah.
But you can't just sign players just on video analysis. Surely the manager has got to have more of an input than just saying, oh, I need a new left back, and then turning up with somebody next Monday morning saying, oh, there's your new left back here, when you know nothing about him. But with a manager situation, and we talk about, your spreadsheets, I'm sure they've got ideas of the managers that they want to bring in. But for me, the one constant that has been through last few managers is backroom staff. Why is Devaney still here? Why is Stead still here? Why is the club, why are the players not improving? Because you can't tell me, aren't any of these players you've seen this season, any of them have actually improved. That tells me that your coaching staff aren't very good. Devaney never wanted manager's job, yet he's still there, supposedly as this bridge between new managers coming in and the players, and yet there's no improvement. For me, you can pick a Lithuanian manager, whatever, but he's got to have support behind him. And for me, Clark has always been fighting against probably the players, because a lot of them players have let him down. But for a manager to come in now, I don't think it's a case of they don't want to come because Board's not going to back them. They'll have seen the team play. They'll be looking at some of them players and think, I don't want to manage them. I can't do out with them because they're not interested. They don't want to play. What am I going to do? Anybody who comes in now needs to come in with a big stick and give him a right old hammering. Somebody like Sean Dyche, something like that. You either want to play for red shirt or you don't. It's a simple. There's no leeway either way. It's a simple yes or no. Do you want to play for Barnsley? Are you going to give 100%? Are you going to sweat blood? Yes or no? And anybody who fuck off, get shut, because you listen to some of these people on Twitter and what have you, coming up with all this garbage that they come up with. It's a simple game. Kick a ball in a net. End of story. It's not rocket science, but we make it harder. And I just don't see the club going anywhere without a complete clear out. Doesn't matter what manager you bring in, you leave your backroom staff, old boys network, Masons, and they've got a for trouser leg up or whatever, shaking hands with the bollocks. It's never going to change. Get them gone, get them out, start again.
It's true because you look really, the last two managers have not been able to arrest this poor home form. So who's that down to? That's got to be down to players. You can't have two different managers have struggled to. I know the away forms.
Which young kids gone? If we've got such an amazing academy run by Bobby Hassel, where's all these kids gone? Jurgen Nathan's gone out on loan. He was the only one that actually showed a bit of fate. What's happened to Chapman? What happened to him? He was next big thing coming through, played beginning, and not seen him since. Where's all these good kids that we've got that aren't developing, that aren't getting any better, and certainly aren't getting a look in it first team? When you're getting bloody Benson on bench and then you play him at right back. Who thought of that? Whose bright idea with that? And don't give me this shit about, well, he scored. Yeah, he did score. It was bloody lucky, but he did score. But for the rest of the game, he was garbage. He's not a right back. He knows he's not a right back. I know it. Even Adam knows he's not a right back.
He's gone. He's lost it.
Do you know?
Don't hold back, Steve.
I'm just glad I've got this pint of gin because I need it. And I might even go tomorrow. Who knows? I'm hoping it's pissing it down so I don't have to bother.
Last round of questions. Adam, one thing that they talked about the atmosphere. They talked about the atmosphere, the fans, and he mentioned, which I thought was a bit, but hey, he talked about a small minority jumping on the player's back when the ball goes wrong. I think you have that anywhere, any football ground. Under 12s on a Sunday morning, that will happen. So, but then he said the onus is on the fans, and see, that bothers me because it to me there is no difference whether I pay 400 quid for a season ticket or 30 quid for a single match ticket at Oakwell to watch a football match, or I pay, I don't know, 50 quid to go and see Coldplay in Hull or whatever. You know what I mean?
Why would you? Aren't you depressed enough? We aren't going to watch bloody Coldplay. Good God, man. Pick something else.
If I pay, I want them to get me off my seat. The owners shouldn't be on the fans to get the players going, because not being funny, at 8, 9, 10, 11 grand a week, they should have all the ambition and energy to put something on for the fans who dream of wages like that. Exactly. But for some people, that's what they earn in a month is 2 years' wages to the normal bloke in Barnsley. So by saying the onus is on the fans, I thought he had a perfect opportunity to mention the flag that fans have raised money for that goes around in the Ponty. Something positive. But for a chairman to say the onus is on the fans, my initial reaction was, you talk about how much money you're losing, you're talking about how much players are earning. Onus is not on the fans. It's on the players to get me off my seats, not for me to get off my seats to get X, whoever, start playing football. Am I wrong, or is that a fair view?
I get that. I do totally get that viewpoint, Carlo. My kind of thought process on this has always been that it's down to both. I mean, if you support your football club and you're willing to pay X amount of money, then you want to get part of an atmosphere. You want to go and sing your songs and make it somewhere that people fear going, and you want to enjoy yourself while you're there. And certainly under the lights, as they say, on a weeknight, I've always felt there's a much better atmosphere on a weeknight than a weekend for me. And there's been many times where it has been a bit quiet, but ultimately the greater onus is on the team and the players. That's what they're paid to do, to get out there. I do think you need a bit of both. There's a time and a place to get on the players' backs, half time, full time, when the game's not on. During the game, try and get behind him, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, when he was talking about there's a section waiting to boo the players when they make a mistake, I could say that about most of our local clubs, if I'm being brutally honest. And and lots of others that is the case. But I think it all works hand in hand, doesn't it? And it all works hand in hand. It kind of ownership have got to provide the right players. The coach has got to pick the right system. The players have actually got to put 100% in and give their absolute all on the field. And the fans need to turn up and do their bit. So I don't think there's any greater onus on any part of it. But you certainly would look at those players on the pitch need to give it some.
Yeah.
And if the fans aren't seeing that, then they're gonna have their say.
Yeah. And I think it goes hand in hand with what they've seen over the last 2 seasons at home. I think, especially before kickoff, they clap, they sing, whatever it is they do, and then they're waiting for the players to spark. But I completely agree. He said, Ian, we need good attacking players, and currently there's too much division between the club and fans. Which is, I suppose, we get that. Plans for the fan zone have been published. Chronicle episode, a planning permission has gone in for a fan zone in the Eastern car park. It's going to be shipping containers, sort of remodeled for food and drink outlets and everything else. I mean, that's a positive step, isn't it? That we're going towards something. Although, should we... And this is the chicken or the egg question. Is that a good thing, a new fan zone? Or should we concentrate on getting things on the pitch right before spending money? Because I suppose, playing devil's advocate, people could say, what you're spending on the fan zone, you could be spending on players. So where do you sit in that debate?
I think the fan zone, they need a proper permanent structure. A lot of clubs do it now. I wouldn't have thought it'd cost that amount of money. It's not like suddenly we can't afford a striker because we've got some shipping containers in and a bit of planning application. They do need something proper down there to entice people in. The thing about the division, you're always going to get a little bit of division when the form drops off. I mean, the performance on Saturday was like they're just so low on confidence, these players. It's untrue. But when you do start seeing good performances, then obviously the fans, you see better results and the fans are happy. I think the division and the toxicity is more coming from the fact that the board are consistently making mistakes. And like the comments that they've said today, fans will, if Orahane could get these players playing for the end of the season and then we start seeing some decent football for once, then the fans will get back on side, but they'll still be sceptical of the board, so there'll always still be that division. But yeah, they need to be doing something. They need to be bringing money into the club in other ways. They've said they will, like i.e. with the boxing. They've got to bring other revenue streams in. The fan zone will be a good thing. It's going to be difficult because the ground's so close to the town centre and there's such a thriving town centre with the bars and stuff that they're always going to be up against it. They're going to have to not just put shipping containers in, they're going to have to do some decent deals to get people to come to the ground, because we've done it before pre-match. It's a far better atmosphere in the town centre and then set off with 10 minutes to go. And it's better. They're going to have to think about it. It's not just a matter of having some structure up. They're going to have to really entice people down to the ground for an hour, 2 hours before kickoff.
Steve, home match tomorrow, Cambridge at home. I'm not going to ask if you go in because I know that's weather dependent. Conor Horan's home game, I would say, as head coach. I know there are injuries. We know Mark Roberts is suffering from concussion. So, I think probably the biggest miss, besides DKD, obviously he's fit, but Mark Roberts at the back, because we talk about strength in depth, you're probably looking at a Donovan Pines. And then people go, ugh. Last year at this time we were going USA, and now we're holding our breath when he gets the ball. Hey, that's recruitment. Who do you want to see playing tomorrow? Do you think he'll put anybody in that you think, oh, that's a bit different? Because obviously, he's got not free reign, but it's his first match in charge at home. Or do you think he's going to go largely with the team that narrowly lost away at Mansfield?
Narrowly lost away at Mansfield?
Well, the scoreline says.
Well, yeah, no.
We're talking about performance because,
Yeah. I expected, being perfectly honest, although Hurahan's just stepped up, I did expect a bit of a new manager bounce because of his reputation, because of his relationship with the club. I expected a lot more than what we saw against Mansfield. I did expect some sort of changes. I actually thought he might change formation and step away from the 3-5 at the back. And yeah, we're really disappointed, not just in the team he picked, although he didn't have much choice, let's face it, with injuries. Yeah. I don't know why, I just expected more from him. I expected some change, but maybe some change in mentality, some change in style. I don't think there'll be much of a change tomorrow, to be quite honest. Again, like you said, injury-wise, we're still struggling. I'd like to think they would put a show on for the supporters that do turn up, that he would be emphasising the fact that it's his first home game as a manager and he needs to make an impression, especially with the doubters and the people that are sat on the fence. I mean, they've just announced the early bird tickets that have been frozen, which personally I think is a good thing. Don't get me wrong. We might set boards crap at a lot of stuff, but this is, I think, a good thing. However, there's still quite a lot of people, even though the price has stayed the same, that will be, I don't know whether I'm going to renew or not. Yeah. And not only has he got to prove that he's the man for the job, and I'll be honest, I think he'll get it anyway, because it's cheap option. And at the minute, we just seem to be going down cheap option. But he's got to put bums on seats for next season. You can have your fan zone, you can have your 3-second pints, you can have all this, but if you're not getting people through that door, doesn't matter what you've got. You can have topless barmaids and pole dancing in the middle of the pitch at half time, and we'll still not go. You might have to think about it, but we'd still not go. Do you know what I mean? Sure. It's stuff, but it's stuff like that. You need a product. We're paying for a product. I come back to, they're running a business. I've said it for years. Yeah, we know it's a business. It is. But the only way you make a business thrive and improve is by getting your public on your side. And doesn't matter how all singing, all dancing it is, it's the pitch that matters. And if Hurahan cannot get them players to play for him, and let's face it, Clark couldn't get them to play for him, Collins couldn't get them to play for him, we're on a hiding to note. Really are.
And it would be unfair to ask him to do that in 10 matches. But I'm going to ask you in a minute a score forecast on the first Barnsley scorer, should you think there would be one. I just want to mention the People's Visual History. So a well-known photographer is making a book, and it is, I'll read it out to you. So if you have any photos of yourself, your friends or neighbours, or your mum or your granddad at Oakwell or at an away match, or even with your favourite player, if you've ever kept a scrapbook or a flag, a banner, a rosette, scarves, tickets, or any other mementos that are associated with the highs and lows of following Barnsley FC. Such items rarely get attention, but collectively they form the people's visual history, offering a valuable and distinctive viewpoint into the connection between the club and the town it represents, as well as the experience of being a fan. So if you have anything, if you go to the website, www.peoplesvisualhistory.com, the club has authorised this. The Fan Advisory Board is behind it as well. Have a look on Twitter. We've retweeted something. Or you can email them, bfc@peoplesvisualhistory.com. So if you've got something that you think, we've got a lovely photo outside Wembley with us three. Can you remember that, lads? I think at the back of the book in a corner behind the cover or something would look absolutely lovely. I know, Adam, you are at Oakwell tomorrow.
Oh, bless. What have you done wrong?
Yeah, I'll be sat behind you because I'll be there tomorrow as well.
Oh, bless.
Given the given the home form, Cambridge are, struggling, you can say. But
practically relegated.
Yeah. What do we expect, Adam?
What do I expect tomorrow? Honestly, I still think Barnsley are going to win. I do think the fact that it's Howrahan's first home game in charge. There were only a couple of days before Mansfield. He's had a full week. I like the fact that he's backing Flavel in net. When they could have gone out and got somebody else, I thought he did all right last weekend, and I also think the club should be playing a lot more on maybe some of the players like Barrett and Flavel and maybe others that are coming through and that people will get behind. So I do like that. So I think Barnsley will win by a couple tomorrow. I'll probably go with a 2. Let's go with a 2-0. And I would go with Stephen Humphreys as my scorer because his last goal was at Cambridge. And football tends to do stuff like that. So yeah, I'm going to go Humphreys 2-0.
I'll go 3-1. Donovan Bynes, bullet at the top corner. That's after he scored their own goal in the 3rd minute. Ian, what do you think?
I'm going for a narrow 2-1 victory. I think I've just had a quick look at their recent results, and even their defeats have only been narrow defeats, even though they have lost about 4 in a row. So I think it'll be 2-1. I don't think it'll be. I think it'll still be a tough game, but I think we'll should just have enough because they do, like Adam says, they do look like they're going to be League 2 next season.
Steve, whether you'll be at home or Saturday.
No, you know what? I'll be there. I will be there tomorrow. If you two guys are going, I've got to go, haven't I? I'm going to have a steady stroll up front town. I'm going to call in the new sandwich shop that's open just at top of hill, which is very nice. I recommend it to anybody. I did call in there a couple of weeks ago and had a very nice spam and egg sandwich, bit of brown sauce, beautiful.
Nice. So varieties are available.
They are. I'm going to have a burger tomorrow because burgers look right nice and all. Good prices, tasty food. Can't remember what it's called, so I'm not going to get a freebie, am I? Which is really disappointing. But never mind, let's not worry about that.
Hey? When you go up the hill, you can turn left towards the Metrodome.
Yeah, that one there. It opened a bit before, and then it was shut, and now it's opened again. I can't remember what it's called.
It's a nice sponsor for you there, Steve.
I'm trying. I'll nip in tomorrow and ask them. We'll mention it on next show. 2-0, Watters to score first. Come on. Wow. You Reds.
Well, there you go. Optimism amongst us four. After a week and a bit that saw head coach sacked yet again. A rare interview with one of the hierarchy at Oakwell. But optimism nonetheless, of course. Adam Oxley, thank you very, very much for joining us again. We always enjoy it and value your opinion. Let's hope you're right. A clean sheet would be really good for Flavel as well, I think, tomorrow.
Definitely.
It deserves that and a win. Ian, you'll not be there tomorrow, but, a win's a win, isn't it? We'll take it any old way.
Oh, yeah.
Steve, it kicks off at 3, so make sure you leave that shop at least at 10 with them sandwiches.
Isn't it 12:30 or 5:30 or 6:45 or 8 o'clock, something like that? No? Okay.
Not this week. Don't forget, check out the website for any mementos you might have of the Barnsley match. We'll mention that in our socials as well. Thank you very much for listening or watching or both, whatever you've done. This is the Reds Report, and we'll be back next week.